Action, you see, feeds and strengthens confidence. Inaction, on the other hand, in all of its many forms, feeds fear. I've heard it from actors, newscasters, professional athletes, even paratroopers. It's the waiting. It's the anticipation of a big event. That's the hard part. Once the action starts, nervousness and fear dissipate. But the longer the action is postponed, the greater the tension and fear become. So, if you're dreading making a certain phone call, make it, and the dread will disappear. If you're afraid of confronting a problem with your superior, don't put it off. That will only increase your anxiety. Discuss it, act on it, and discover how those worries are conquered. Make this a resolution. Build your confidence and destroy your fear through positive action.
Someone once said that the most difficult problem in life is getting out of a warm bed into a cold room. That's a difficulty a lot of people face. The longer you lie there thinking how unpleasant it will be to get up, the more difficult getting up becomes. This is another case where a quick injection of action is needed. Writers often talk about writer's block, the inability to get started. But the writer who waits for inspiration to come will probably be waiting for a very long time, may never even get a word on paper. Salesmen have frequently noticed that the hardest call to make is the first one of the day, the one that gets them started. But until the salesman takes the plunge, he or she is not a salesman at all. They're just a person thinking about being a salesman. But listen, here's a writer with an idea about getting started.
When I've got deadlines to meet, I simply can't wait for the spirit to move me. So I use what's called a mind force technique. I make myself sit down at my desk, then I just pick up a pencil or a pen or whatever, and I just go through the mechanical motions of writing. Sometimes I just doodle, sometimes I just, the idea is just to get my fingers and arms in motion. If there's a particular subject I'm writing on, I'll start writing anything at all that I can think of about that subject. Pretty soon, without being conscious of the transition, my mind gets on the right track and I just go from there.
People who get things done in this world don't wait for the spirit to move them. They move the spirit. Try these two exercises and see for yourself. First, use this mechanical starting method to accomplish simple but unpleasant business or household chores. Rather than thinking about the task, just jump right in and start doing it without any deliberation. Washing dishes, for example, or filing those papers at work. Don't even let yourself think about it. Just start doing it. That's the most effective way to handle these chores. Second, once you've done a few chores this way, use the mechanical method to create ideas, map out plans, solve problems, and do other work that requires top mental performance. One good way to get going on big projects is with a very inexpensive investment, a pencil and paper. With these two tools, you can tie your mind to a problem. When you write a thought on paper, your full attention is automatically focused on that thought. That's because the mind is not designed to think one thought and write another at the same time. And when you write on paper, you write on your mind, too. Tests prove conclusively that you remember something much longer and much more exactly when you write it down on paper. In addition, once you master this pencil and paper technique for concentration, you can think in noisy and distracting situations. When you want to think, just start writing or doodling or diagramming. It's an excellent way to move your spirit.
But when you get in your head, what does that really mean? It means you're believing the most limiting thoughts. And you have to remember, we all have a 2-million-year-old brain. And it's not designed to make you happy, it's designed to make you survive. So it's always looking for what's wrong. Remember we played the game Look for Brown, and you all saw beige shit and called it brown just to feel successful? I said look for red, you saw burgundy, you called it red, so you could get more scores. Whatever you're looking for, seek and ye shall what? Find. It says that in a very good book called The Good Book. And you don't have to be religious to understand this, that this is a fact of life. So if you and I are going to really take things to a different level, we got to see what could mess it up. So the mind could mess it up, but what aspect of the mind? What makes us start to believe those thoughts? What's the emotion that messes us up? What is it? It's absolutely fear. But there's more than this. Every day of our lives, we live in a world that is incredibly complex. It is no more stressful than World War II, when none of us in this room probably remember that time, but it looked like democracy was disappearing and the Germans were going to win at one stage. That's stressful. Being in a foxhole is stressful. You're not making as much money as you want, or being a little overweight, or someone calling you names online. That shit is not stressful. We're making it stressful. We've lost perspective. Who's with me on this? Say I. So what's really useful, I think, today is for us to figure out what messes us up. And one of the biggest things that messes us up is expectation, right? What did we say the other day? Trade your expectations for appreciation and your whole life changes. Because when you're expecting things and it doesn't happen, you get upset. So that first day also was all about, what if you lived your life and you made a decision? And the decision was, life is too short to suffer. It's too short to be stressed, pissed off, fearful, worried. Who's with me on this? But our minds, our survival software, is always looking for it's wrong. Our job is to create the happiness. And the only way you do that is you draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not going to suffer. I'm going to be honest. If I start to feel that stress, I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to realize we're the only creatures on the planet that can think a thought and become angry. Think a thought and become playful. Think a thought and be worried. Think a thought and feel loved. That's why we can change how fast? But you have to take control and train this brain. If you don't train this brain, it'll use you instead of you using it. You have to identify with your heart or your soul or your spirit instead of the brain. As I said, in China, the heart is the emperor. It is the highest energy. It's the thing that is worshipped, because when you were born, there was no brain. Your heart started beating and there wasn't a brain and you was a fetus.
It's happening to people. Maybe not everyone, but to a whole lot of people. Their commitment to success is weak. They want to succeed, they will take 3 steps, then something little interesting happens here, they will go away here, they'll go away there, they'll go away there. Hey, I want to live, huh? Their commitment to success is weak. Either situations around them in some way, situations can impede you from doing what you're doing very easily. Many times it happens to everyone. But when this happens, people weaken their commitment for their success. Maybe physically, they'll feel little weak, they will weaken their commitment to success. Maybe their emotions slosh around a little bit, they will weaken their commitment to success. This is very important right now. However long it takes, this virus, you must come out of this successfully. That means you must stay alive, that's an important part. And commitment to staying alive should not be slackened, no matter what happened. Somebody very dear to us passed away, all the more important we must live. People around us are all sick, all the more important we are healthy to take care of the people around us. So our commitment to success should not weaken because there is social drama going on, or physiological drama or psychological drama, whatever happens, your commitment to success should not weaken. That is what gets you across so many lines in our life, so many barriers in our life. So, what does success look like? What does it take? You must understand, those who made any significant achievements in their life, they did not, I don't want to take any personal examples of anybody, I'm trying to avoid obvious things that are coming to my mind. Well, I know family and friends who always have their breakfast on time. And after breakfast, of course, they must have coffee. After coffee, of course, they must light up a cigarette and sit there nicely because they're trying to become peaceful. And then they will go to work, come back home exactly on time for lunch, eat lunch, rest for 1 or 2 hours, sleep, then evening have one tea and then smoke, and then again go to work. And 8 o'clock, 8:30, they're back home for dinner and then maybe other things, drink and this and that and whatever. Well, that's their priority. It's fine, I'm not complaining, it should not be that way. But those who have been very successful, either in music, sport, art, business, spiritual process, doesn't matter what, those people never know when they ate, when they slept, when they got afternoon rest. I've not seen such a thing in my life. So, those who are committed to being successful with whatever they're doing, one important aspect of their life is they're not settling down wherever it's a bit comfortable.
The enlightened person is traveling on a bus, and I used to travel a lot on Greyhound buses in the past in the States. And often you wonder, but at the next stop, who is going to the next person going to sit next to you? It could be somebody pleasant, or it could be somebody drunk, or it could be somebody who talks continuously. So the enlightened person is sitting there, somebody comes in at the next stop, and he's talking and getting out his beer and drinking and getting more and more drunk, and then starts bothering you. But there's a seat over there that's free. Does the enlightened person say, I'm enlightened, therefore I'm not going to change seats, because what is the need to change my life situation? I'm at peace already. It is true that deep down there is the peace, but on the outer levels, certain situations are preferable to other situations, and one seat may be preferable to another seat. And so it happened once or twice that I did that. I changed seats on the Greyhound bus so to get away from somebody next to me. But if the bus is full, then what do? You can't change seats, then you stay and be at peace with where you are, which is perfectly possible. So the changes can take place on the surface of your life. There may be one place where you would rather live than the other place, or you would rather travel to this location than to that one. That's all on the surface of your life. There are certain choices, and you make certain choices. If there is no choice, you're perfectly fine with there being no choice. The peace is there anyway, and on the outer levels, some things are more pleasant than others, and then I would choose the more pleasant one, but perhaps St. Francis would have chosen the unpleasant one. Maybe that's our difference. And maybe that's the difference between medieval spirituality and this. There's not one is better than the other, it's just different. But what matters is that at the core, the peace is there. And so I believe everybody, even the Buddha, must have made certain choices. He chose to go to that particular garden. Somebody had given him a pleasure garden, so he moved himself from the forest into the pleasure garden. Why did you go from the forest to the pleasure garden? Wasn't the forest good enough for you? Says the eagle. No, it's just on the surface that seemed to make more sense and was more suitable, and he moved himself there. He would have been equally happy with the rest of his life in the forest. So that's quite simply how it is. So you're perfectly capable still of changing your life situation. If change is called for, why not?
When you're in peace, you're showing God that you trust Him. Anyone can stay in faith when everything's going our way. The test comes when the contract doesn't go through, when your child is off course, when the medical report is not good. It's easy to let the clutter in. No, be still. That's the time to show God that you trust Him, not just with your words, but with your actions. See, the enemy's main target is our mind. That's the control center for our life. If he can keep it cluttered, filled with doubt, what if it doesn't work out, Joel? What if my health doesn't improve? What if I don't meet the right person? As long as our mind is cluttered, it keeps God from turning it around. God works where there's faith. 2 Chronicles 32, the king of Syria had a huge army. They had invaded that whole region, conquering all these large fortified cities by tearing down the walls and capturing the people. The city of Jerusalem was next in line. Word quickly spread throughout the Israelite camp. The people began to panic, so worried, thinking, what are we going to do? They're so much bigger than us. King Hezekiah said to the Israelites in verse 7, don't be afraid of this mighty army, for there is a power far greater on our side. They may have a great army, but they are just men. We have the Lord our God to fight our battles for us. When you face big enemies, big oppositions, you have to remind yourself our God is bigger than the cancer. He's bigger than the addiction. He's bigger than the people that are trying to stop you. The way to stay in faith is don't talk about how big the problem is, talk about how big your God is. He flung stars into space. He spoke worlds into existence. He healed my mother of terminal cancer. He gave us the Compact Center. The good news is, right now, He's breathing in your direction. He's pushing back forces of darkness. He's lining up the brakes that you need. Don't let fear clutter your mind. Don't let doubt keep you from your miracle. Don't let people talk you out of your dreams. The king of Syria sent a letter to the Israelites threatening them. It said, we've conquered all these cities, we've captured all these people, none of their gods saved them. What makes you think your God is going to save you? The enemy will always try to defeat you first in your thoughts. Things like you'll never get well. Your grandmother died of the same thing. You'll never break the addiction. That problem will never turn around. Don't believe those lies. He wouldn't be telling you that unless he knew it was on the way. Do like Hezekiah. Yes, this problem may be big, but I know a secret. My God is much bigger.
You must understand that failure is required. There can be no victory without a struggle attached to it. You don't deserve a victory without a failure. Failure does exactly what is necessary to make you better, to put you on the path at the right moment. And just because you fail, it doesn't mean that it's over. But when you get pushed back, you come back. You come back strong. You come back with the willingness. You come back with a purpose. Do not be afraid to fail. Failure is required. Champions cannot be champions without failures. And when that opportunity comes for you to rise up with a full heart. Don't let it confuse you. Don't let it misuse you. Don't just accept it, but understand it. What good is a victory? What good is a win if you don't fail? You got to understand that this is what life is all about. Failure. What is it doing to you now?
When I think about the word dominate, I think about all the synonyms: to pursue, prevail, think, execute, and dominate. When I played college basketball, I sat there on the bench and I was very frustrated. Sometimes I had a bad attitude, but eventually I got my attitude together and I began to realize, you know what? If I just dominate the role my coach gives me, maybe that will position me to get promoted. So when he gave me 5 minutes, I dominated those 5 minutes, and that promoted me to 10 minutes. When I dominated for 10 minutes, that promoted me to 15 minutes. Before I knew it, I carved out a niche and I dominated. I became the top 6 man in the country. If we look around the business world, we have household names, and they're only household names because they dominate their industry. I need you to dominate every single day you go to work. If you're a company, you created the niche, your job now that you have the niche is to dominate your industry until you become a household name. I did no different when we started our speaking business. I got paid $25 in gift certificates the first time I spoke.
It's certainly something worth considering. And what is nothingness? Well, Alan Watts summed it up more than eloquently in a statement he made when he said that nothing is what your head looks like to your eyes, and that nothingness is what's watching. And I truly can't think of a better description. Nothingness and consciousness coexists in that space behind your eyes. You can't have something here without having that nothing there. So you need to be aware of that nothingness, the nothingness that lies behind your eyes, because it is within that nothingness that lies consciousness. And it's all connected. It's connected to ourselves, it's connected to each other, and it's connected to everything in the universe. You need to open your minds to see this. And once you've seen it, the more you can begin to realize it. And the more you realize it, you can quite literally feel it physically. It's like a warmth and a rise in frequency in your body. The true realization that there is no other. There is only one, and all that truly exists within that singularity is love. There are only two human emotions, love and fear. All other emotions stem either directly or indirectly from these two base emotions. But fear is an illusion created by this reality, because all that truly exists within the singularity is love. That's all there is, and love is all there can possibly be, because there is only one. There is only the singularity. So how can there be any other emotion at all? Indeed, how can there even be any concept of emotion? Within the singularity there exists only the singularity, and the singularity is love. There is nothing else.
What we've been developing is a population of emotionally weak people who perceive themselves in terms of victims. When you have challenges in life and you meet them, it brings something out of you. So, for instance, when my arthritis came, and I didn't know what else am I going to do at that time. I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to be a footballer since I was a kid. And now my joints are swelling up, and they're telling me I'm going to have to pack it in. Now I thought, I'm not packing it in. I want to give it a go. So I went to a club called Hereford United that was a league club then. And I played the whole season with rheumatoid arthritis. Every morning when we were training and warming up for training on cold English mornings, I was in agony. And I would be limping and what have you, and the players would say, "Oh, what's wrong now, Ike?" And I would give a different excuse. "Oh, I've got a bit of a pull. Oh, I think I've got a bit of a blister." But actually it was the same thing all the time. And I played the season out, and eventually it got so bad that I couldn't carry on. But it brought something out of me, this determination not to give up and not to give in. And then I decided, because when I was a kid, I was always reading newspapers, and I was very interested in journalism. So I became a journalist, and long story short, I eventually became a television presenter.
Well, very well known back then.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was a national television presenter in those days. And when I look at my life now, you see, and what I'm doing, my life before, which appeared to be a series of random events. Same with you. You've had your challenges in life. What has it done? It's made you the person you are. You wouldn't be the person you are now without them. Mm-hmm. And people say, "Well, I regret that. I regret that." Well, the thing to regret is if you don't learn from the experience. That's the regret. But learning from the experience, well, you've had a gift. What are you regretting for? And so I went into journalism because I was very interested in that. And I eventually became this television presenter. And when you look at my life, as I was saying, all the different elements of it, including going into journalism and seeing the media for what it is, going into politics with the Green Party and seeing politics for what it is, well, I didn't know at the time, but they were all giving me very, very important understandings that would be useful later on. And then what happened is, this is a kind of bizarre story, but it happened. I was in the Green Party, and I was still working for the BBC as a television presenter, and both were leaving me completely cold. The BBC, it's not a great organisation to work for if you care about the truth, and you care about more than the official version of everything. And I also was looking at the Green Party politics from the inside and seeing that it was just like every other party. And so what do I do with my life now? Because I can't go on with either of these. And what happened was a very strange thing happened, because in the early part of, what would it be, 1989, I started having this feeling that when I was in a room alone, I wasn't alone. And it's like there was an atmosphere there. There's something there. And through 1989, this got more and more and more powerful.
And to surround yourself with people who believe the same and who are rejoicing in your accomplishments and unhappy when you fail, right? And you're comparing yourself to your accomplishments of yesterday and not to someone else's today, so that you're not jealous and bitter. And you put your own house in order so that you're not cursing the world when some of its disarray might be your fault. And you're trying to pursue something meaningful, and you're doing your best to tell the truth and all of that. And then you see what happens. Who the hell are you? You think you're a miracle of some bloody bizarre sort. We've been around for 3.5 billion years. Every single one of your relatives propagated successfully. And here you are, against all possible odds, in this world of hell in some sense, and bitterness and tyranny and malevolence. And yet God only knows what's inside you, this capacity for consciousness, the capacity to confront potential and to turn it into something good. That's us, man. That's the Western story. That's the individual as the cornerstone of the state. That's our responsibility, and it really is who we are. And so we need to know that, and we need to remember it, and we need to act it out. And then maybe we can see what we can do about it, and see how good we could make things. And maybe that would be the purpose of your damn life, right? Not to be happy. It's like, there's problems to be solved. Be happy after you solve the goddamn things, right? So I learned, because I looked at dark things, that I learned that the light was more powerful than the darkness as far as that I was concerned, and that people were capable, each of us, of remarkable things, and that we need to know that that's what we are. We're this consciousness that confronts potential with all its catastrophe. That's what we are. That's what makes us in the image of God. That's what gives us our intrinsic value. And that idea that we have intrinsic value, that's the bedrock presupposition of our state. We're going to question that, or we're going to live it out. Better to live it out. Find out who you are. Thank you very much. It might be say that someone who is incapable of cruelty is a higher moral being than someone who is capable of cruelty. And I would say, and this follows Jung as well, that that's incorrect, and it's dangerously incorrect, because if you are not capable of cruelty, you are absolutely a victim to anyone who is.
Ultimately, if you're going to have lasting change in anything, you're really talking about just raising your standards. I mean, I always tell people, if you want to know how to change your life, I give it to you in 3 words, boring as it sounds: raise your standards. And what does that mean? Corny as it sounds. Raise your standards. Oh, thank you for the breakthrough thought, Tony. I'm glad I wasted my time watching this little email with you. But think about it. Lasting change is different than a goal. You don't always get your goals, but you always get your standards. Maybe it would help you is to think about it this way. I try to explain standards to people with a different set of words. Think of it as everybody in life gets their musts. They don't get their shoulds.
You can learn all the techniques in the world. If you don't believe in yourself, it won't happen for you.
Jot these questions down. Question number 1, what makes life valuable? Interesting philosophical question. What makes life valuable? Human life. Now that we find ourselves on this spinning planet, a chance to live a human life, what would make it valuable? Second question, what makes life worthwhile? Third question, what makes life work well? Good practical question. Now, under work well, we could put, spiritually, socially, personally, economically, physically. There's a lot of different aspects to making life work well. But that'll suffice, because those questions, I think, are very vitally important. What makes life worthwhile? What makes it valuable? What makes it work well? And all the aspects. If your life doesn't work well in some aspects, what would you fix? And I've got some good answers on that. There's usually about 6 things that makes 80% of the difference. That's the formula.
You got to focus on you. And as you convince you, as you sell yourself every day, you will begin to see a difference in the things that you're doing. Selling yourself on your ability to perform a job, to achieve a certain objective. Telling yourself every day, here I go again. And I got what it takes. This is my day, and nothing out here is going to stop me.
One thing I've learned in the last, 33 years of working with people from now over 100 countries, 4 million people, is human beings absolutely follow through on who they believe they are. Most people, if they really look at how they're living their life today, it's based on a set of standards, a set of beliefs that they made choices about 10, 20, 30 or more years ago. I mean, very often we made decisions in our youth or very young about what to believe, about what we were capable of, about who we are as a person, and that becomes the glass ceiling, if you will, that controls us.
The other thing is, take full responsibility for your life. Accept where you are and the responsibility that you're going to take yourself where you want to go. Someone said we have 2 primary choices in life. We can either accept conditions as they exist, or we can take the responsibility to change them.
So let me give you an example. Now, you said you're the king of hustle, right? But I would actually debate that. When I talk about hustle, I talk about the people who believe that you have to work an ungodly number of hours to be successful. There is a much healthier way. So there are 2 different types of people who are talking about entrepreneurship today. There's the type of people who talk about entrepreneurship purely in the physical sense. It's about the number of hours you work. It's about the number of phone calls. And of course, hard work has its place. But then you see the rise of books by people like Michael Singer, who wrote the book, The Surrender Experiment. And if you read the book, it's kind of cool. This guy built $1 billion software company, and he talks about how he did that by surrendering, by going within, by having a daily meditation practice. Now, in your case, I believe you're doing it. You're also moving to that approach, but you're doing it unconsciously. When I listened to you speak at AFES, and you spoke about how you sit down, you relax, and you thinkitate, and these ideas come into you, you're tapping into something. Tom, you're tapping into your intuition. That is a far more efficient way than trying to hustle to get these ideas. You're going within. So you're already doing one of the first steps. Now, the second part is how can you optimize your rate of going from idea to reality. That's the second part of bending reality. And there are a significant number of tools that you can put into play to help you do that by working on your inner states. For example, one is creative visualization. There are so many studies that show that what you visualize in your mind, you can help accelerate in the world. For example, one study called the finger abduction experiment basically had people exercise their fingers, okay, like physically exercising fingers, and then a control group of people visualize themselves exercising their fingers. And what they found is that one group grew finger strength by, let's say about 10%, the other group by 9%, really close, just by visualizing their fingers. Now, the same thing happens in sales. You can actually accelerate your sales closing rate by visualizing the outcome. And we don't really understand how it works, but we know it works. And the same thing happens in your entrepreneurial life. When you get a clear vision of the business you want to create, of the lifestyle you want to create, you move towards that faster. And so meditation to me is not just about going zen. It's not just about like focusing on your breathing. It's about knowing how to tap in, which you do so well, and then knowing how to get clear on what you want and to focus on that vision for a few minutes every day.
I am afraid that too many times we have put so much focus on teaching you to be good seed that we haven't taught you the power of good soil. And so when we come to soil issues, the seed ignores the soil. We flick the channel. That has nothing to do with me. We close our eyes because we have been taught to be good seed, but we have not been taught to pay attention to soil. And yet the Bible is clear. Jesus says the soil went forth sowing seed. And some fell by the wayside. Some fell amongst rocks. Some fell amongst thorns. The whole text is about environment. Look at you and look at your environment. Have you been positioned to flourish? Positioning has a lot to do with flourishing. To be in an environment, in a family that supports you. My sister and I were talking the other day. I was telling her what an amazing person she is, that all of our lives together and all the things that God did in my life, not once in all of the years that I've known her, and she was there when Mama had me, have I ever known her to be jealous of me. Not once, not ever. She has always been my cheerleader and my greatest fan. And she said, how could I be jealous of you? You're my brother. I said, a lot of people have siblings that hate them, that are jealous of them, that hope they choke. And some of my development has to be that God planted me in an environment of people that supported me. My brother, my sister, my mother, my father, they all supported me. You can have good seed, but if you've been in bad soil, people who hated you, environments that denied you, education that underserved you, communities that limited you, mentalities that poisoned you. Or do you hear what I'm saying? If your soil wasn't right, it doesn't mean that you're not right, but if your soil wasn't right, it's going to affect how you root and how you grow. And you might grow a little bit. The Bible says you can grow for a while, but then the thorns will choke you out, or the rocks will not have enough soil for your roots to grow. Are you blaming God for something you ought to be blaming the soil for? You cannot take a peach seed and plant it in a teaspoon of dirt and expect it to grow. Though the teaspoon of the dirt is the same size as the peach seed, it will not grow. The seed will only grow when it is planted in something bigger than itself. And I want to know, where are you planted this morning? Are you planted in something bigger than you? Or have you always been planted in teacups, surrounded by little dirt, little resources, small-minded people, narrow, limited places that never let you stretch to reach your capacity? Sometimes you gotta go where the corn is.
The best place is actually our podcast. Is Quick Brain, Kwik Brain. It's really my last name. I didn't change it to do what I did. It's my father's name, my grandfather's name, but this is a new venture for us. We publish a couple episodes a week, and it's really, every episode is less than 20 minutes. It's to be able to say that these are brain hacks for busy people who want to learn faster and achieve more. Everything from read a book a week to remember people's names to my top 10 favorite brain foods to how to eliminate or add new habits. That's the best place. People go to quickbrain.com and they could join a private Facebook group there and post questions for future episodes, and also download free. We give them $100 worth of brain training as a gift. Or any social media. You know, I love our social media. Yes. So anything at Jim Kwik on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.